They say every man has his moment of awakening. Some get it under a hood in a garage, some while holding their newborn child, and others, well, others get it while staring at a spinning circle on their iPhone screen, waiting for an AirTag to update its location. I didn't plan on becoming one of those men, but life doesn't really care much about your plans, does it? Now, I'm not the kind of guy who usually snoops. I've been the facilities manager. That's a fancy way of saying janitor with keys to everything at Alderson High for almost 12 years. You don't last that long in a building full of hormonal teenagers and passive-aggressive teachers unless you know how to mind your own business. But marriage? That's a different kind of hallway to mop. Rachel and I met at a diner in Towson back when you could still smoke inside if you sat by the jukebox. She wore a red leather jacket, ordered coffee black, and laughed at my dumb joke about maple syrup. Being a conspiracy, I was hooked. Married a year later. 2 kids, Emily and Lucas, and 15 years of what I thought was quiet suburban stability. The kind of life that smells like pancake mix on Sundays and melted crayons in the back seat of your SUV. But then came the DM. No, not direct message like the kids say. These were just the initials that kept flashing on Rachel's phone. When she thought I wasn't looking, white letters on a blue icon I didn't recognize. I didn't even mean to see them, but you know how it is. Your wife's phone lights up on the kitchen counter while she's getting wine, and your eyes do that thing where they read stuff before your brain even asks for it. DM, again. Then, again. Once, while she was on the patio at 11:45 p.m., laughing too hard for someone supposedly responding to her sister's memes. Let me just say this. I'm no saint, but I've been faithful. Hell, I even got a vasectomy after Lucas was born. Still remember the frozen peas. So when Rachel started getting work trips that always, and I mean always, seemed to align with the travel schedule of this one marketing guy from her company, Derek Myers, my inner janitor started cleaning up the trail. Derek's the kind of guy who says stuff like, let's circle back, and wears shoes with no socks. Big smile, big handshake, small soul. I met him once at a company barbecue. He brought a Bluetooth speaker and insisted everyone listen to his playlist called Vibes and Vision. That was all I needed to know. Anyway, I didn't confront Rachel. Not directly. That's not my style. Instead, I got clever. A few months back, I'd bought the kids a set of AirTags for their backpacks. In case they wander off, I said. Truth? I'm the one who wanders in my mind and forgets where I parked. But suddenly, those little trackers became my secret weapon. While Rachel packed for her annual regional training in Baltimore, I casually handed Emily one of the AirTags and asked her to sneak it into Mommy's pink suitcase like a spy. She giggled. Mission accepted. The next morning, while Rachel kissed me goodbye and promised to text when she got there, I was already in my workshop refreshing Find My iPhone like I was waiting for concert tickets. She didn't go to the Marriott by the airport like her itinerary said. Nope. She parked herself at the Harborview Suites, a boutique hotel downtown. The kind that charges you $7 for water and has exposed brick walls just so you feel like the bedbugs are artisanal. I Googled it. No conference rooms, no ballroom, just mood lighting, velvet chairs, and views of the harbor for couples trying. To feel like their affair is poetry. I could have blown up right there. Called her, called him, called a divorce lawyer named Shelley just because I liked the name. But again, not my style. Instead, I told Rachel I had to go to Baltimore that weekend to check out a gym floor supplier. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "Oh, we'll be in the same city. Funny coincidence." I told her I'd be staying with Jason, my buddy from college, who's basically a grown man with a fridge full of Gatorade and one towel. I didn't. Stay with Jason. I booked the room right across the hall from hers. Same floor. I timed it so I'd get there an hour after her check-in. I waited in my car, palms sweating like I was about to audition for Survivor Suburban Edition. Then, I went in. She opened the door wearing a fluffy white robe and looked surprised, but not scared. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" "I figured I'd surprise you. We never get weekends away anymore, right? I smiled, all teeth, all calm, like the AirTag in my pocket wasn't practically humming from betrayal. She let me in. The room smelled like those stupid jasmine candles she used to burn in college, and the bed was too made for someone who'd supposedly just settled in. Still, she hugged me, said she was happy I came, and offered to get dressed so we could have dinner together. For a moment, I almost believed her. Almost. But then, while she was in the shower, I did what no husband wants to do. I looked, not through her phone. I didn't need passwords. I looked in her overnight bag, which was tucked neatly under the desk, and found something that made my stomach turn harder than Jason's home-brewed IPA. A box of Lux X ultra-thin condoms. Unopened. Now, I haven't touched a condom since Obama's first term. Remember the vasectomy? Yeah, we agreed it was overkill, but Rachel wanted the peace of mind. That peace clearly didn't extend to me anymore. So I did what any mildly unhinged man with access to a travel sewing kit would do. I poked two of those suckers with the thinnest needle I could find, right at the edge where you'd never notice, unless your night turned into a biology experiment. Petty? Absolutely. But also symbolic, like planting a flag on a sinking ship just to say, yeah, I was here when it went down. Then I zipped everything back up and booked us a table downstairs, pretending nothing was wrong. We laughed over steak frites and shared cheesecake like it was our anniversary. She asked how the gym floor thing was going, and I told her I'd heard from a guy who once installed hardwood at Fenway Park. Total lie, but it sounded legit. Back in the room, she was yawning by 10, said she had an early strategy session the next morning and needed to look sharp. I kissed her goodnight and told her I'd go crash at Jason's after taking a quick call. That call came in right on time, thanks to Jason himself, who called saying the gym's pipes had burst. And the janitor's closet was now the school's new Olympic pool. I acted concerned, told Rachel I had to rush back, and left her standing there in that robe, pretending she believed me. Driving home, I felt like someone had swapped out my insides. Not quite heartbreak, not rage either. Just this dull, twisting pressure behind the ribs. Not knowing for sure is worse than knowing, because it leaves too much room for hope. And hope, when misplaced, is a damn parasite. Still, all I had were condoms and a hunch, but something told me I wasn't crazy. Not yet. Not quite. You ever try pretending your marriage isn't unraveling while eating complimentary eggs next to the woman unraveling it? That was me the next morning, chewing rubbery scrambled yolk blobs at the Harborview Suites breakfast bar, while Rachel scrolled through her emails like the fate of Pfizer depended on her inbox. She looked good. That bothered me more than I care to admit. Her hair was styled tighter than usual, makeup subtle but expensive looking, and her perfume, Jasmine Noir, lingered with the kind of confidence you usually associate with luxury car commercials or high-stakes divorce attorneys. "Sleep okay?" she asked between sips of citrus water. "Like a log that got hit by a chainsaw," I replied, giving her a half-smile. I stirred my coffee with the fake enthusiasm of a middle school theater teacher on a caffeine detox. She didn't catch the tone. To the outside world, we were just another midlife couple doing the surprise getaway thing to keep the spark alive. No one could see the AirTag in my pocket or the snapshots saved in my notes app. Especially the one where I held up a condom wrapper like it was Exhibit A in a court of quiet despair. Back at the room, Rachel packed up in that methodical way she always did. Shirts rolled, cosmetics zipped, shoes stored in cloth bags because, apparently, dirt is classist. As she zipped the main suitcase shut, she smiled and said, "Thanks for coming, Ethan. I know it was last minute." I smiled back. "Anything for you, babe. Anything, including small-scale sabotage and emotional espionage." I told her I'd check out early and head back to town for some school plumbing issue. She believed it. Why wouldn't she? I've always been the guy who fixes things. Toilets, Christmas lights, feelings. Only now I wasn't sure what exactly needed fixing, or whether I even wanted to fix it anymore. But before I left, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I kissed her hand. Not her lips, not her cheek, her hand, like I was saying goodbye. To a statue of a woman I used to know, she didn't flinch, but her eyes flickered. That's when I knew. She felt it too. Not guilt, something worse. Distance. I drove home in silence. No music, no podcasts. Just me, the hum of tires on I-95, and a plastic bag on the passenger seat containing a 3-pack of Lux X Ultra Thin, now reduced to 1. I hadn't touched the third. Symbolic restraint. At home, I did what I do best when the world feels like it's tipping. I cleaned, scrubbed the stovetop like it owed me money, reorganized the garage shelves by torque level, even vacuumed behind the washer where I found a Barbie shoe, 3 dryer sheets, and a peppermint that looked like it had survived. The Reagan administration. I needed time, space, answers, and I got them. Just not in the way I expected. A week later, the opportunity presented itself in the form of a glossy white envelope labeled PharmaSync Annual Celebration, Spouses Welcome. Rachel left it on the kitchen counter like it was junk mail, said she might skip it this year since it was just networking and ego-stroking. But I had other ideas. I showed up in my best khakis, a navy sport coat that still smelled faintly of mothballs, and the determination of a man who once fixed a broken vending machine, with a butter knife and a prayer. If there was a chance to see this Derek guy in his natural habitat, smug, overgroomed, overly flirty, this was it. And that's where I met her, Lauren Myers, wife of the sockless wonder himself. She introduced herself like someone who's used to disappointing people on purpose. "Hi, Lauren. Wife of Derek." "Yes, that Derek," she said, offering a hand stacked with silver rings and nails painted the color of Cabernet. "You must be Ethan. Rachel's Ethan." "Guilty," I said, "and apparently not the only one." She raised an eyebrow and sipped from a martini glass like it was a prop in a noir film. "Oh, honey, you don't know the half of it." Turns out, Lauren had her own version of Find My iPhone. But hers came with screenshots, camera stills, and a spreadsheet. That would make the FBI blush. The woman had data, hotel receipts, calendar overlaps, even an audio snippet from a butt dial moment Derek once made while bragging to someone named Trevor from Legal. "You got any evidence?" she asked. I pulled out my phone and showed her the condom photos. She didn't even blink. "Lux X. Ultra thin," she said with a dry chuckle. "He buys those in bulk, says he's allergic to thicker brands. Of course he is." That night, we sat at a two-top near the open bar and traded intel like spies in a parking garage. Lauren had installed monitoring software on Derek's phone months ago, not because she suspected him of cheating, but because he once claimed he was at spin class during a blizzard. Apparently, spin class happens at the Marriott Lounge now. Who knew? By the time dessert rolled around, something chocolatey with raspberry scribbles on the plate, we'd formed an alliance. She needed leverage. I needed closure. Our plan was simple. The next time Rachel and Derek went on one of their matching training seminars, we'd install a hidden cam in their hotel room. Lauren had a guy, some ex-AV tech from her Etsy podcast group, who could help. Nothing illegal, just informative. "I don't want to destroy your wife," Lauren said, tapping her rings against the glass, "but I do want to destroy her alibi." I respected that. 2 weeks later, Rachel told me she had another conference in Philadelphia. New hotel, new agenda, same Derek. I gave her my usual supportive husband nod, made pancakes for the kids, kissed her goodbye at 6:15 a.m. She smelled like citrus and guilt. Meanwhile, Lauren and I got to work. She booked the room next door to theirs using Derek's old Marriott Rewards login. The man really is predictable. And rigged up. A motion-triggered GoPro in the air vent. The footage was fed straight to her iPad. And let me tell you something. There are few things in this world more surreal than sitting in a Panera Bread parking lot, watching a live feed of your wife making out with someone who says synergy, unironically. I didn't cry. Didn't scream. I just sat there, drinking black coffee out of a chipped thermos, thinking how strange it is that you can be right and still feel like the loser in the room. Later that night, Lauren texted me a single frame, Derek's socks on the floor beside Rachel's dress, captioned, "Your turn." I didn't respond, I just stared at it. Not because I couldn't believe it, but because part of me always had, and now that belief had a timestamp and a resolution setting. The next morning, I woke up with a headache and a sense of relief I couldn't explain. I told the kids their mom was staying a bit longer to help with event wrap-up. They didn't ask questions. Kids are sharper than we give them credit for. But sometimes they let us lie because they know we need the practice. As for Lauren and me, we weren't friends, not exactly. But there was a shared silence between us that felt oddly comforting. Two people in the same boat, rowing toward a truth no one else wanted to admit. You don't realize how many lies live inside a house until you start talking to someone who's been peeling the wallpaper off theirs. Lauren and I weren't exactly a dream team, more like the weirdest buddy cop duo Hallmark would never dare to film. But somehow, between screenshots, surveillance equipment, and mutual contempt for Derek's cologne, desert wind, come on, we'd become something resembling allies. The night after the Panera incident, I couldn't sleep. Not because of the footage, not even because of Rachel. It was the stillness that rattled me, the quiet recognition that the woman I'd built a life with had long since left the building, and I'd just been changing the light bulbs in an empty theater. The footage, by the way, wasn't graphic, not in the way some sick part of me had braced for. But it was damning in all the ways that counted. The kind of lingering looks, shirt tugs, and whispered inside jokes that only happen between people who've done it before and plan to do it again. What bothered me most wasn't the sex. It was the intimacy, that damn laugh she gave him. The same laugh she used to give me when I mispronounced bouillabaisse at that overpriced seafood place in Annapolis. Now it was his. And somehow, I wasn't even angry. Just hollow. Like someone had taken a melon baller to my soul and scooped out everything except the rind. That weekend, I got a text from Lauren. "You want to talk over it? My place. Bring beer. I've got the Rage snacks." Rage snacks, as it turned out, were chili cheese Fritos, dark chocolate almonds, and one of those novelty-sized jars of pickles you can only buy in stores that also sell deer corn and ammo. Her place was exactly what I'd pictured, an explosion of Etsy and sarcasm. Macrame on the walls, a framed cross-stitch that read, "This is why we can't have nice things." A cat named Chairman Meow. We sat on her porch swing, watching lightning, bugs while sipping Yuengling, and talked about what came next. "I could torch his car," she said, licking Cheeto dust off her finger. "I know a guy. Cash only." I chuckled. Tempting, but I'd rather burn the illusion than the Honda. She nodded, suddenly more serious. "So what do you want, Ethan?" "Really?" "That's the thing. I didn't know. I didn't want revenge. Didn't want Rachel back. Didn't even want to make a scene. I just wanted peace. And maybe, just maybe, a little dignity." "Let's make it count," I said. "If we're going to confront them, we do it smart, calm, surgical, like a dentist with a grudge." Lauren's eyes lit up. "Now that's the janitor energy I'm talking about." She came up with the idea, a fake email from PharmaSync's HR department requesting Rachel and Derek attend a debrief session at the Baltimore office about recent code of conduct concerns. Meanwhile, Lauren would be in the parking lot, ready with a lawyer, 2 affidavits, and a pressurized thermos of herbal rage tea. Me? I had my own part to play. I was going to have a conversation with Rachel, The real kind. No accusations, no yelling. Just a mirror held up to the mess. I invited her to dinner at this old-school steakhouse in town. Dark wood booths. Waiters over 60 who treat you like royalty if you tip in cash. The kind of place where people still order gin fizzes and no one uses a phone without permission. She wore a red dress. Not flashy. Just flattering enough to make me wonder if she was dressing for guilt or habit. We made small talk over crab cakes, kids, work, weather. Then, over the second round of bourbon, I said, "Rach, when's the last time you lied to me?" She paused, fork halfway to her mouth. "What?" "I mean it," I said. "Not in a fight, not white lies. Just you looking me in the face, saying something that wasn't true." She set the fork down. "Why are you asking me that?" I leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Because I've got a folder in my truck with timestamps, hotel bills, and photos that don't leave a lot of room for interpretation. But before I bring any of that out, I want to hear your version. You've got one shot, so make it good." Rachel blinked. Then she smiled. Not a cruel smile, a sad one. The kind people wear when they realize the chess game is over and they've got no pieces left. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said quietly. "It started slow, lonely. I didn't feel like I mattered anymore. I let that hang. There." "You mattered," I replied. "You just didn't notice." She looked down. "I never stopped loving the kids. That's not what we're talking about." I know. She didn't deny it. Didn't try to spin some story about training schedules or work obligations. She just sat there letting the quiet wrap around her like a cheap hotel comforter. After dinner, I didn't hug her, didn't kiss her cheek. Just nodded, got in my truck, and drove home with the windows down. The next day, she left a note on the counter, going to spend some time with my sister in Portland. "Need space. Please tell the kids I'll call." I told them she was taking a break to work through stuff. They nodded. Emily hugged me a little too long. Lucas asked if he could have ice cream for dinner. I said yes. Meanwhile, Lauren filed her lawsuit against Derek's company. Used Rachel's acknowledgement of the affair as leverage for damages. We kept it quiet. No press, no gossip. Just clean paperwork and the slow unraveling of two lives that had been knotted together in all the wrong ways. A month later, Rachel emailed me from Portland. Said Derek bailed. Said she lost her job after the HR department didn't appreciate the optics. Said she was staying in a friend's guest room thinking about the mess she'd made. She asked for forgiveness, not for the affair, but for putting our family on the line for a man who wore bracelets made of recycled bike tires. I didn't reply. But I didn't delete the email either. Some wounds you keep like souvenirs. Not because you miss the pain, but because they remind you what you survived. As for Lauren and me, we kept in touch, not romantically, not yet. Just two people who'd been through a storm and decided to build a better porch together. Sometimes that's enough. The thing no one tells you about starting over is that it doesn't come with a big bang or a sunrise montage. It's quieter, slower. It sneaks up on you, usually while you're doing something absurdly ordinary, like fixing a leaky hose spigot or trying to remember which kid hates pickles this week. In my case, it started with a letter, not a text. Not an email. A real paper and pen letter from Portland, complete with the kind of handwriting Rachel only used when writing birthday cards or job applications. There was no return address. Just a postmark, a floral stamp, and the unmistakable weight of a woman trying to put her regrets into 1-ounce postage. I didn't open it right away. Let it sit on the kitchen table for a couple of days, right next to Lucas's half-built Lego, battleship, and a grocery list that still had pimentos circled in confusion. When I finally opened it, the first sentence read, "I won't ask you to take me back, I just need you to know the truth." She went on to say that Derek had ghosted her 3 weeks after arriving in Portland. Said he showed up with a duffel bag, a yoga mat, and a self-published ebook titled Marketing with Mojo, How to Sell Without Your Soul, which apparently he did not follow his own advice on. He'd promised her a job at a startup his cousin was definitely launching soon, but when the startup turned out to be an Instagram page and a dream, Derek packed up and left to find himself in Sedona. Rachel was left alone in a rented room with a dying succulent and more shame than savings. She apologized, not for cheating, but for shrinking me. That's the word she used. Said I didn't deserve to be made small, that she mistook stillness for stagnation and loyalty for lack of ambition. Said she didn't realize that being loved quietly is still being loved fully. I folded the letter back up, poured myself a glass of iced tea, and watched the kids playing tag in the backyard until the sun dipped behind the oak tree. I didn't cry. I didn't gloat. Just sat there, letting the silence settle around me like an old jacket I'd finally grown into. A week later, Lauren stopped by with a pitcher of lemonade, a bag of citronella candles, and a playlist called Post-Affair BBQ Vibes. We didn't talk about the letter. Didn't need to. Instead, we set up the patio, her stringing up fairy lights, me lighting the grill like it was my second job. The kids ran wild with sparklers, screaming something about fire dragons while Emily tried to teach Lucas how to spell retribution using sidewalk chalk. At one point, Lauren pulled a folding chair next to mine and handed me a burger with pickles on the side, because she asked, and I answered, and somehow that felt like romance. We sat there, the smell of charcoal and citronella mixing in the air, both of us barefoot and a little sunburned, sipping lemonade from mismatched mugs. She turned to me and said, "So, what's next for Ethan Brooks?" I took a bite of burger, chewed, swallowed, and wiped my hands on a napkin before answering. "Nothing fancy," I said. "Keep fixing things. Keep showing up. Maybe finally learn how to caulk a tub without making it. Look like cake frosting," she laughed. One of those full-body laughs that starts in the belly and ends with a snort. That was the moment I knew I'd be all right. Not because I had someone new, not because Rachel was gone, but because I was still here, still Ethan, still solid, still standing. Few days later, I donated the last of Rachel's stuff to a local shelter. Kept one thing, a beat-up coffee mug from our first vacation in Asheville. Not because I missed her, but because it reminded me of who I used to be before everything got complicated. Sometimes we hold on to things not because they matter now, but because they remind us we once did. That fall, Lauren and I threw a backyard party for the neighborhood. Nothing big, just burgers, cornbread, and a cooler full of root beer and Coors Light. I fixed up the old picnic table. She made a chalkboard, sign that said, "Welcome to the second act." People came, laughed, ate too much. No one asked where Rachel was. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't think about the Harborview suites, or AirTags, or the sound of lies whispered under hotel sheets. I thought about the sound of Lucas giggling while blowing bubbles. I thought about Emily rolling her eyes at her dad's jokes, but secretly loving them. I thought about the fact that every story doesn't need a villain. Sometimes it just needs a new chapter. As the sun dipped low and fireflies blinked into the warm air, Lauren handed me a sparkler and said, "You gonna light it or just stare at it like a metaphor?" I lit it, watched it spark and fizz in my hand. And somewhere in the background, a neighbor kid yelled, "Mr. Brooks, your grill's on fire!" Which of course it was, because nothing ever goes exactly to plan. But sometimes, that's exactly the plan you didn't know you needed. Some people leave your life to make space for the ones who know how to stay.